The film begins by presenting the narrative of two people, Rupasov and Zai. Rupasov was once a fearsome assassin, but he's been in a wheelchair for the past 3 years owing to injuries. Zoe, on the other hand, was born with a disability and has had to use a wheelchair his entire life. Z is now living in a dormitory with his friend Adam. In his spare time, Z enjoys sketching comics and is extremely skilled at it. Rupasov appeared one day while Z and Adam were playing with fire extinguishers in a little alley near their hostel, and he was not pleased with their activity. He became enraged and attacked Zai. A brawl broke out, but Rupasov realized he'd gone too far with Zoe and Adam. Rupasov then apologized and invited the two young men to his party. Zoe and Adam appear to have a nice time during the party. Later, Rupasov offered Zai and Adam positions as assassins, promising them a life of luxury similar to what they had at the party. A few days later, Z was in the hospital, and the doctors wanted to perform surgery on him, but Z declined because his father, who had abandoned him when he was born due to his condition, was paying for it. The story then shifts to Rupasov, who has gotten a task from his boss. Rupasov waited for his victim in an empty parking lot. A car pulled up, and some males got out and approached him. One of them threatened Rupasov with a knife and wounded him in the leg, although he appeared unharmed. He claimed that he hasn't felt anything in his legs since he began using the wheelchair. This caused the other guys to laugh at him. Then one of them booted Rupasov, who coughed before removing a plastic bag from his pocket. Inside the bag was a gun, which he used to shoot each of the guys one by one until they were all dead. After Rupasov defeated the individuals who had attacked him, an ambulance arrived to help him. A female medic named Zita treated his leg injuries. It became out that they knew each other. Rupasov had feelings for her and invited her to go to a movie after her shift, but Zeta declined because she was previously engaged to someone else. Rupasov was devastated since the woman he loved was already with someone else. He attempted suicide by jumping from a pedestrian bridge, but he lived. Rupasov recognized he couldn't give up on life and chose to persevere. The scenario shifts when Rupasov is paid by his supervisor, who instructs him to keep his job a secret and not collaborate with others. Interestingly, Rupasov had been receiving assistance from Z and Adam all along. A few days later, Rupasov ran into Zai at the hospital, where he was receiving treatment for his leg. Rupasov asked Z not to aid him anymore and stopped their partnership. However, Z refused, insisting on continuing to assist him. Despite his mother's persuasions, Z insisted on not taking any money from his father. After finishing his leg rehabilitation, Rupasov waited for Zeta in front of the hospital. He wanted to give her a bouquet of roses as a gift because he adored her. Unfortunately, he was disappointed when he saw Zeta with her fiancé. Rupasov was then assigned the task of assassinating a prominent figure. He devised a strategy to execute it when the individual was having lunch at a restaurant along the freeway. Rupasov waited on one side of the road while Zai and Adam positioned themselves on the opposite side to assist him. Rupasov accomplished his aim with the help of a flock of pigeons and a mob of passers-by. He accomplished it without anyone suspecting him. As the official crossed the street, he slumped and blood covered his body. His security were busy looking for the shooter, but no one would have guessed that 3 crippled guys in wheelchairs were involved. The 3 hastily exited the scene. Later, Rupasov ran into Zita while boarding a bus. She extended him an invitation to her wedding. However, Rupasov had no idea that his employer was watching what he did. When they met, his employer became enraged with him for not following the regulations and pushed him to the ground. The boss gave him one opportunity to put things right. This time, Rupasov was tasked with eliminating Zoe and Adam. The next day, Rupasov went fishing with 2 friends at a lake. Even though it was difficult to navigate through the grassy sections to their target, they eventually arrived at the lake and began fishing. When Adam became thrilled because something had taken the bait and requested assistance with the fishing line, Rupasov pushed him into the water rather than helping him. After that, Rupasov shoved Zai into the water and considered leaving them there, but he couldn't handle the thought of his buddies drowning, so he plunged into the lake to save Zai and Adam. When they all returned to the pier, Rupasov pretended it was all a joke. It was the first time he had failed an assigned mission. When they returned from the lake, Rupasov invited his pals to a party at his home. During the party, he told them about Zita and how much he loved her. Rupasov's buddies wanted to help him get Zita back and began preparations. The next day, 3 of Rupasov's female acquaintances assisted him in standing and leaning on a vehicle, implying that he no longer needed a wheelchair. Rupasov waited for Zeta to return home from the hospital, but she did not appear despite hours of waiting. Their scheme backfired miserably. A few days later, Rupasov's employer assigned him a new mission: assassinate a drug dealer in exchange for double cash. Rupasov agreed to take the assignment, but made it plain that it would be his final mission and that he would not accept any more after that. The boss agreed to his conditions. Rupasov and his two friends visited the target's home. He asked Zai and Adam to wait in the car while he followed out his plan. The guards examined Rupasov before allowing him into the residence, but found nothing alarming, such as a pistol or sharp objects. They took him into the house to speak with their boss, believing everything was safe. When Rupasov met the drug dealer, he began executing his plan. He took a hidden rifle from the wheelchair's foam cushions and began shooting at the guards inside the home. Unfortunately, he missed his primary objective. Instead of fleeing, the drug dealer took a gun and began a shootout with Rupasov. Rupasov, on the other hand, had greater weapon experience as a result of his work as a hitman. Despite being hurt and having his garments splattered with blood, he was able to kill everyone and finish his job. Following that, he hurriedly fled the site. As Rupasov approached the gate, he heard police sirens in the distance. He struggled but failed to open the locked gate. Zoe and Adam, who were in the car, appeared worried. Zai took the lead and diverted the police car, while Adam assisted Rupasov in leaving the house. They all managed to flee. Later, Rupasov visited with his supervisor to receive payment for his efforts. Strangely, the boss gave Rupasov a ride somewhere. They arrived at an empty warehouse, and Rupasov suspected something was wrong because there was a hanging rope. It turned out that his employer had discovered Rupasov's plot. He knew Rupasov's buddies were still alive. His boss was furious and dissatisfied because Rupasov had broken his confidence. He tied a rope around Rupasov's neck, took away his wheelchair, and left him alone. Rupasov worked hard to free the rope around his neck, clutching his shoelaces to avoid suffocating. He tried to reach his wheelchair, which wasn't far away. However, all of his attempts were fruitless. After nearly giving up because his attempts appeared futile, the knot on the rope around his neck suddenly loosened somewhat. He removed the rope from his head and survived. When Rupasov returned home, he instantly gathered his pals and planned to retaliate against the employer who had gone too far. Rupasov joined Zai and Adam for Zeta's wedding a few days later. He looked really great in a white suit, with his hair perfectly styled. Rupasov even demonstrated his singing ability, and many people, including Zeta, complimented him. She became distraught and began crying, but then Rupasov unexpectedly kissed Zeta, making her husband quite envious. Following the party, Zeta's husband and friends confronted Rupasov for what he had done to his wife. She came to Rupasov's rescue. He threatened Zeta's husband with a gun and escorted Rupasov away. In the days that followed, Rupasov began plotting his retribution against his boss. He and Z went to the boss's lair without hiding, while Adam remained outside. Rupasov stated he needed cash for a previous task that the boss owed him, but the boss refused and threatened to put his dogs on Rupasov and Zai. Rupasov then pulled out his rifle and shot at a nearby fire extinguisher, causing the dogs to fear and flee. The boss instantly attacked him, forcing him to drop the gun. He repeatedly stabbed Rupasov with a knife. Zai managed to obtain Rupasov's rifle, but chose not to assist him. He allowed the boss to harm Rupasov until his death. Then Zai murdered the boss and stole all of the money from his safe, intending to spend it for his leg operation. And there concludes the story of the wheelchair killer. Everything we saw about Rupasov in the story was actually a made-up plot from a comic book published by Zai. Zai created a figure named Rupasov who resembles his father and has these disabilities. Zoe never met his father. He only has a picture of him that resembles the character Rupasov, which led him to make a comic about his father and himself. Surprisingly, the comic gained popularity and attracted the attention of publishers, resulting in considerable success. Zai even mailed a copy of the comic to his father as a memento. And that's how the film ends. So the moral of the story is, don't shove your pals into a lake if you want to be a successful hitman, and keep in mind that comic books can change your life, even if your father is a fictional wheelchair assassin.